here. Give me 1 minute. Barbara, have you joined us?
Yes.
I'm here. I'm here.
Yes, amazing. Thank you so much, Barbara, for being here with us. I am delighted to have you, and we will dive right in with first, of course, I'll take a moment, if you don't mind, to formally introduce you, and then we'll dive right into our conversation. And I can't wait to learn more about you, the work that you do, and the impact that you are creating in the world. Before I get started, I would like to quickly introduce you to my brand ambassador and good friend, Stephanie Bernstein. She's also going to be joining us as a co-host today.
Hi, Barbara.
Hi, Stephanie.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Fantastic. Okay, well, again, with me, I'm so excited to introduce to you a leading authority on women, wealth, and power. She is all about that. She's also a best-selling author, financial therapist, a teacher, a wealth coach. Barbara has helped millions take charge of their finances and their lives. Also, she has a background in business, many years as a journalist. She has also a master's degree in counseling psychology. Her extensive research and personal experience with money give her a unique perspective to make her the foremost expert in empowering women to live up to their financial and personal potential. And she also has not one, but 7 books, including Secrets to Six-Figure Women, Surprising Strategies to Up Your Earnings and Change Your Life. With me, I am delighted to welcome Barbara Huson. Welcome,
Thank you. Thank you. It's good to be here.
Yay, fantastic. Okay, so let's dive right in. It's so interesting. We were just literally talking about, how us women, so important to really have that financial independence for ourselves and what that looks like. So you came just at the right moment, and I'm excited to learn more about all of your expertise. So let's start with, who is Barbara? Like, how did you become this financial wealth expert that you are today? And what have inspired you to be this person?
What inspired me was pain, a lot of pain. So I grew up in a wealthy family. My father was the R of H&R Block. And the only advice he ever gave me about money was, don't worry, don't worry.
Wow.
Which honestly, Dee, I thought was great advice. I didn't understand money. I just wanted to spend it. And I married a man who was a stockbroker. So he was perfect, right? But what I found out very early in our marriage is that he was a compulsive gambler. And every year for 15 years, I find out many, many times a year that he was gambling my money, my inheritance away. And the insane part, the really insane part, is I continued to let him manage the money, because that's how terrified I was and intimidated by anything financial. Finally, after 15 years, we got a divorce. And I decided money is not my thing. I do not want to deal with money. Well, I have this theory that if you don't deal with your money will deal with you. And I got tax bills for almost $2 million for back taxes my ex didn't pay, for illegal deals he got us in. I had nowhere close to $1 million, nowhere close. My ex had left the country. My father wouldn't lend me the money. I had 3 daughters. I was not going to raise them on the street. That's when I knew I had to get smart. So I read the books, I went to classes, and my eyes would glaze over and my brain would fog up. And I just I felt incredibly stupid. But I was committed. I was committed. I was not really, it was for my children.
Yeah.
And I really believe that when you are committed, like down to your toes, no back door, the universe revolves to help you reach your goal. And I was a journalist writing for the San Francisco Business Times. And I was hired for a freelance project. It's just amazing. I was hired to interview women who were smart with money. And
Mm.
those interviews changed my life. I mean, I couldn't have planned that. Those interviews changed my life. I not only got smart about money, but suddenly I wrote my first book, Prince Charming Isn't Coming, How Women Get Smart About Money. And I had this whole new career. I was traveling all over the country doing financial education for women. I mean, who'd have thought? But I couldn't make money. So I decided to write another book. I started interviewing women who made lots of money, and I made six figures before I even finished writing that book, Secrets of Six-Figure Women. And now, 7 books later, here I am talking to you, an expert. It is nothing I could have ever predicted, ever.
Wow.
Amazing. What a story. What a story.
I'm sitting here on the edge of my seat, and I'm just sitting, wow, what a way having to learn and navigate all of that. And like, you just tackled it by the horns. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, but what I realized, that gave me a tremendous amount of insight into how women learn about money, and women learn differently. Financial education is usually considered it's usually all about the practical facts. You know, what I call the outer work.
Yeah.
But it wasn't until I started doing what I call the inner work of wealth.
Yes, let's talk about
We were
that.
just talking about this.
Yes, please.
Continue, Barbara. Continue.
Yes, please continue. And please specify. And what do you mean by inner work, and what does that take?
It's really a combination of 4 prongs. It's a combination of the outer work of wealth, the inner work of wealth, the higher work of wealth, and the deeper work of wealth. Those are the 4 prongs. And the outer work of wealth, which you know, is how to tell the difference between a stock and a bond, or how to negotiate a raise. But the inner work is really looking at your beliefs, your attitudes, your early decisions you made about yourself and money.
Mm-hmm.
And the higher work of wealth is the spiritual aspect. Because what happens is, for most women, once we are financially stable, once we have food on the table and a roof over our head, we're not really driven by money. Yeah, we want to make money, definitely.
Yes.
But what drives us is the opportunity to help others.
Yes.
And so when you can understand, yeah, I'm speaking your language, Stevie and Stephanie. So no matter how scared you are, when you can understand how getting smart about money can help you pursue your purpose, can help you do what you're here on this planet to do, it's a whole different ball game.
Yeah.
And then what I call the deeper work of wealth is the mind-brain connection. And that's my latest book, Rewire for Wealth. When I understood how our behavior is controlled by our brain. And when you understand how to reprogram your brain, which by having the mind and brain work together, it just speeds up the whole process and makes it exponentially easier.
Yes. I want to tap into that a bit more. Yes. And, my background is cognitive psychology, and I'm into counseling psychology. That's my background. So I'm fascinated by the brain and like how capable or how miraculous it could be when it comes to making, creating ideas or solutions and such. And so can you share us more? Of course, this is part of your book. And also, what is...
Can I show my book?
Yes, please.
Of course.
Yes.
It just came out. So this is what I call shameless marketing.
Yes. No, I love it.
No shame. No shame.
That's the one I'm eyeing, and definitely for sure. It's like, so talk to us more about that. Like how did that work in terms of...
Yeah. So what I wanted to do when I started studying neuroscience, I saw how if I had incorporated neuroscience into my work and women knew how to reprogram their brains, it's a game changer. It's a total game changer. So I spent 6 years simplifying a process to help women train their mind to rewire their brain for wealth and well-being. And so basically, I'm going to do this real quickly.
Yes.
The brain obviously is an organ in our head. This is your brain, right? It's an organ in our head that controls all our behavior.
Right.
Inhaling, exhaling, saving, spending, everything is controlled by the brain.
Mm-hmm.
The mind, which is not a physical organ, it's a non-physical entity, the source of our thoughts and feelings. It is what controls or shapes the brain. So what flows through the mind, the thoughts and feelings, is what shapes the brain. And it's those neural pathways that control our behavior. So if we can understand how to train our mind to think and feel differently, we can change our behavior in a relatively short period of time. So I came up with 3 steps. It took years, but I came up with 3 steps of a process I call it the rewire response, because every time you are in a situation, you have a choice. Do I repeat my old behavior with the same results, or do I rewire for a completely different life? And so, do you want me to give you the 3 steps?
Yes, please.
Yes, please.
Yes.
I'm taking copious notes.
You guys are adorable. Really, I love your excitement. So 3 steps. I'm going to give you 3 steps and I'll explain them. Recognize, reframe, and respond differently. Recognize, reframe, respond differently. So the first thing you do is recognize the unhealthy or negative thought, but you recognize it in a certain way. You observe it. You observe let's say you're thinking, you find yourself thinking, there's never enough, or I'm not enough, which are very common thoughts that have been wired over time, over a long time. And so you recognize that thought, oh, I'm having a thought about not being enough, or I'm having a thought about there isn't enough. So you recognize it with curiosity, not criticism or judgment. Oh, and then you separate yourself from it, like by saying, oh, I am having a thought about I need to buy those Prada shoes, or I'm having a thought about I don't have what it takes. Just notice it, but separate yourself from it, because it's just a thought. It's not a truth. It's just a thought going through your head. Once you recognize it, the second step is to reframe that thought, to ask yourself, how can I see this differently? How can I reinterpret it? Do I see it through the eyes of love or through the eyes of fear? So this is really like giving yourself an affirmation. So, oh, I'm thinking, I'm having a thought about I'm not enough. What if I reframed it for plenty? I'm enough. I can do this. Or there's never enough, or there will always be enough. You won't believe it. You will not believe that. But if you say it over and over again, you will start to believe it, because it'll start being wired in your brain, because that's how all your beliefs became wired in your brain. You just kept repeating them enough. And then, so you recognize with curiosity, you reframe with a more positive interpretation, and then you respond differently as if that reframe is true. You respond differently by doing what doesn't feel normal. You respond differently by doing what you're scared to do, because it's not something you would be apt to do. Does that explain it?
Oh my goodness, 100%. And I'm like envisioning, even as you were, saying that, like, in what situation, especially the example that you said, when I have the thought of I am not enough, and then recognizing that and being able to detach myself from having that thought, because chances are when I'm doing the work I do with making myself aware of the thoughts that I'm having, is I'd have the tendency to make myself bad for it, or like beat myself up from having that thought. But what is really fascinating, what from what you just said, is being able to recognize it, but then just saying, I'm having this thought versus not, this thought is not a part of me. It's what is really resonating with me, and that separates. Then I can really do the work around it by reframing it and then responding to it differently. So yes, 100%. This is so incredible. And yes, ladies, you have heard Miss Barbara already sharing that. I feel like I'm so respectful, like I'm like, so like your work, I'm so like in awe about, and I don't have the words to even describe it, but I have so much respect for you and for whatever it is that you do with the book and the women. And so what is the very first step, Barbara, if people especially women and working moms, if they want financial independence and they know very little about money, what is the first step they should take in educating themselves with?
I'll tell you what I did. Because getting smart or smarter with money, because it never ends. Honestly, it's so much simpler than you think. Although there's a whole industry hell bent on convincing others otherwise. It doesn't take a lot of time to get smart, and it doesn't take a lot of money to create wealth. What it takes is small steps consistently taken. And I'll give you 3 steps. You do these 3 steps for, I don't know, 2 or 3 months, and you will be amazed at the difference.
I'm ready.
Are you ready? Okay.
I'm ready.
Yes, I'm ready.
And this works. I swear to God, this works. Every day, read something about money, even if it's just for 1 minute, even if it's just for 2 minutes, even if you just take the business section of the paper and peruse the headlines. Even if you're standing in line at the market, you take Money magazine instead of People and leaf through it. Even if you're going to bed at night, you take a finance book, preferably one of mine, but not necessarily. You take a finance book, you read 1 paragraph, because so much of getting smart or smarter is just familiarizing ourselves with the current trends. What I did is, when I wrote my first book, Prince Charming Isn't Coming, so many of the women I interviewed subscribed to the Wall Street Journal. So I subscribed to the Wall Street Journal. Well, that sucker came every day and I couldn't understand a word it said. So I took the finance section, I put it on the kitchen counter, and every day I'd walk by it. And I'd figure by osmosis, I'd pick something up. And I'll be damned, to this day, I will still do that. If I don't have time, I put it on the kitchen counter and I'll walk by it. So every day, read something about money.
I love that.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
And it doesn't need to be a long time. You don't need to read a whole book, and you don't need to read a whole article. Just glancing. Every week, have a conversation about money, preferably with someone that knows more than you. I believe it is our secrecy and silence that keeps us stuck.
Yes.
Oh, we'll moan and groan about money, but when's the last time you talked to a friend or a colleague or a family member and you said, how did you get smart?
Yes.
We just talked about this too. Yeah, it's
amazing.
true. And it's a topic that no one, it's like,
about.
it's the only topic that is not talked about and looked down upon, right?
Because people are scared.
Yes.
And women are scared and we're shamed. It's like the forbidden fruit.
Yeah.
It's like the last forbidden fruit for us. I mean, you can talk about sex easily, but talk about money, it is the ultimate intimacy for a couple, honestly.
Yes. Yes.
So ask questions like, how did you get smart? What did you do? What are the biggest mistakes you made? What's the best advice you were given? Just talk like that. And people, I found when I did this, people were so willing to share. So every day read, every week talk, and every month automatically transfer money from your checking account or your payroll check to a savings account. And it doesn't need to be a lot, just a few dollars, $5. It doesn't matter. It is getting in the habit of consistently saving, because it adds up so quickly. So every day read, every week talk, and every month save. 3 months, tops 4, you will be amazed.
This will be in writing on my mirror as before tomorrow morning. I love that advice. I love that advice. Thank you.
And it's fun. It's fun. Getting smart about money, it doesn't need to be overwhelming.
Yeah.
It doesn't need, and I created a group It was always my dream, because we women don't talk about money as women, is I created a group called the Wealth Connection. And what we do is we talk about money. And that it's not about the practical facts. It's about the emotions. It's about the fears. It's about what's stopping us. It's so complex, but to be able to talk about it with other women in particular, because Emory University did a study that shows there's parts of our brain that light up when women can talk about money with other women. that there's something about just knowing I'm not alone.
Right.
I'm not the only one who feels this way. That is so freeing and so empowering.
Yeah. And you feel safe or safer.
Yes, you want to have a safe place to talk about it. So you don't want to do this and talk about someone who's critical or condescending. You do not want to do that.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
So let's go back. I know you said 4 parts of the inner work, and I really am.
No, I said there's just 4. There's only one part. There's 4 parts to getting smarter about money. The inner work is one of those parts.
Yes, so that's a piece that I would love to see if we can explore more on, is that in the inner work. So in terms of that, like in terms of the practice that we can carry on or what we can do to explore that inner work, what would it be, Barbara?
You want to do a little exercise right now?
Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
I'm in it.
Okay.
We'll be in it with you. I love it.
Okay,
Yeah.
let me do it. I'm going to take you through a little exercise. It won't take very long at all.
I'm
Yes.
ready. I got my pen.
Yes, the
Okay,
audience.
but first
get
you got to
ready.
close your eyes. So I'm
Uh-oh.
going to ask you, yeah, just close your eyes. Okay, and anybody who's listening, I suppose this is going to be recorded and people will be listening to the recording and whatever.
Yes.
Okay, I want you to close your eyes and I want you to go back in time to when you were a little girl, maybe 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever age comes up. And I want you to recall your earliest memory of money. What is the first thing that comes to you when I say, what is your earliest memory of money? I'm going to give you a few seconds and then I'm going to tell you what to do with that. And if nothing comes up, it's okay. Because when you're falling asleep tonight or you're taking a shower in the morning, you never know what comes up. So your earliest memory, then I want you to take that memory. I want you to run through it. And I want you to freeze frame it like a photograph. And in that memory, you made a decision about yourself and money or money that is probably long forgotten, but is likely very much controlling your behavior and your attitude with finances today. So that's it. Open your eyes. And if you would like to share, and I will help you with that. Did you get anything, Stephanie or Dee Dee?
I'm like trying to wake up a little bit. Yeah, so well, of course I overthink everything. So I was trying to overthink and what my first memory is, but this is something that definitely came to mind and resonates. When I was in kindergarten, we used to have what they called a donation box for all the kids to come in, and you would bring in just a piece of silver change, nothing major, or you weren't required to bring anything more than more than a nickel. And it was an exciting thing for me, that we kind of did this song and passed this box around, oh, this person is bringing, this. And I think that played a huge part in what I wanted to do.
So when you froze it,
Mm-hmm.
What did you see?
My hand with around the coin, about to drop it into this box.
And what did you feel as you were about to drop it, or as your hand was around this coin?
I felt empowered, but I felt empowered and I felt empowered knowing that I was sharing and giving.
And what do you think the belief that because at that moment you made a decision about money. What do you think it was?
Well, that I think that money is necessary to have and to give. It's a give and take.
You thought about give and take at that moment? I think you were just thinking about giving.
Well, yeah, that too. But I guess
But
I'm
no,
here.
it
37-year-old me is now thinking about what
yes,
I'm telling
exactly.
you.
Yes, not the kindergartner, right?
Yeah,
No,
so
not
I want to go back to the little one
Okay.
who was so excited to give,
Yeah.
who was so excited.
Yeah.
And would you say your decision is the fun in money is giving,
Yes.
the joy of money is giving?
100%.
And how do you see that playing out in your life?
How do I want it to be, or how
No.
is it?
How is it? Are you a giver? I mean, do you give money away a lot?
Yep.
Do you give money away to the detriment of your own self?
I have.
Yes.
I have.
And
Trying
but
not
you
to
aren't,
make-
but you aren't anymore.
No, but I have made those mistakes many, many, many times throughout my life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So a simple thing like the earliest memory can help you. You, Stephanie, have done a lot of work on yourself, clearly, and you have made some changes. But often, if you don't understand why you are engaging in this behavior that you want to change and you just can't, often it is going back to those early decisions that you made.
Interesting.
Dee Dee, did you get anything you'd like to share?
Ooh, yes, no, it was definitely interesting. I couldn't recall the moments that related to money. I could envision like where I was around that age, but no, I'm still having a difficult time with trying to recall like first experience with money. But to be honest, the reason why I probably couldn't recall it because I just didn't see it. I just didn't really get to see money in that sense, you know. So I mean, when I was growing up, it was just like, it's not like we have an allowance system or anything like that. It was not seen. I mean, my parents were taking care of us and everything, but I just never get to see like money in real life.
No, now that in itself is interesting.
Right? That's why
money was secret. Money was something that was kept at distance.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
And do you think that's affected you?
Oh my goodness, yes, absolutely. And so perhaps that's why for the longest time, you know, I was just literally sharing that I'm like much of a spender, and maybe sometimes like I don't want to retain it because I don't want to have anything to do with it, you know, and or I have this recurring belief that money is evil. So for the longest time, I didn't want to create the wealth, create the money, because I didn't want to be that evil person. So that was my, you know, limiting belief. But it's interesting. Now I have to really sit with that and see, okay, then when is that, you know, moment? But I don't remember anything besides not really being able to see it, or it was kept like more of something that, yeah, a secret.
So it was kept at a distance. It was not something it wasn't part of life, which is very unusual because money is such an integral part of daily life.
Yeah, I recall stories where my mom would tell me that, you know, everybody, because this is when we were living on a budget, because we know that we were going to move to the States and like in a certain amount of time. So we were all living on a budget, and like every day my mom was giving an allowance, like a daily allowance of what she could spend on getting us breakfast, lunch, dinner, and things like that. So I know that was maybe the experience was that it was always limited.
So I wonder, so you do have an early memory. That is an early memory.
Yes, but like in like physically, like Stephanie with like, you know, the coin over the box type.
No, but no, that is an early memory of you were putting on a limited budget. And I wonder if being limited, if that feeling of lack of freedom around money is why you don't want to spend it, why you don't want to feel free, and you don't want to be restrained.
Yes, and of course, I think as I was growing up, I'm like rebellious with the opposite, right?
Yeah.
So then I'm like just spending as soon as I have the money, I spend it because I didn't have that, you know, when I was growing up.
Exactly. So that counts as an early memory. It doesn't have to be a specific thing. It's just your earliest. So you have a memory of being money doled out. It was limited, and you didn't have freedom with it.
Yeah.
And so yours is a rebellious, it's a rebellion. And that, but what happens is that you aren't in control of your money.
Yes.
And that's what financial freedom is. It's being in control of your money, not your money in control of you.
Yes. And that's exactly what, when I, of course, started working on myself, and that's what I really discovered. And when my business really took off was when I realized was that I really need to have a relationship with myself, value myself, then in turn, I can create that wealth, and having to build that from within versus having to control everything around me.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Fascinating. This is so fascinating. I can talk about money all day long. It's so interesting how this is so taboo for most of us. And honestly, that's why I want to create this platform so we can have this conversation. And honestly, now I'm super inspired, Barbara, to do a completely segment on just money, just women and money.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah, I mean, because this exercise, I mean, for a second, even just being put on the spot, which is fine. It's a little uncomfortable, but that kind of goes back to talking, but I love that I got it out of my system, and that you asked me a certain question, and then we framed it a certain way, and it needs to feel more comfortable, it needs to feel like it's not such a.
I give you a lot of credit, Stephanie. I give you a lot of credit for speaking up, and that is the way that is the way to get over that. That forbidden fruit. You modeled it beautifully. It felt uncomfortable. You didn't want to do it, and you said it. That took courage, and that's exactly what it takes for us women to get ahead financially. It takes that kind of courage.
Yes, and for me too, I definitely relate. Is really asking for help is the biggest thing for me, and especially when I know the first time I ever had to ask for help, and it happens to relate to money. What it was, of course, this is when I was running my brick and mortar right in the midst of a recession. This is 2008, and I had to receive the help financially for the first time, and it was so out of my comfort zone. It was so uncomfortable, but it was definitely the first time where I really get to see this is how my reaction or my relationship with money is, because I was totally scared of it. I didn't want to have it. I didn't want to do anything with it. I was afraid that I was going to lose it. And then it was incredible. It was one of those lessons that I think I wouldn't trade for anything in my life. It was
so good for you, because the number one requirement to go to the next level financially is the willingness to be uncomfortable. The willingness to be uncomfortable, because success in anything, whether it's making more money or losing weight, is always lies just outside our comfort zone. I have 3 daughters. 2 are in their 40s, 1 in their 30s. Whenever they feel confused, afraid, stuck, don't know what to do, they always call me. And they always say, what should I do? And they know exactly what I'm going to tell them. And I always say, what are you most afraid to do? And they'll tell me. And I said, yes, that's exactly what you need to do. Because that's always where success
Can
is.
you adopt me, Barbara?
Hey, you got this, Dee Dee. You did this on your own. But whenever I get scared, and I scare myself all the time. And I learned this from the women I interviewed, the successful women I interviewed who made 6 and 7 figures. I call it the stretch, where you go from what feels comfortable to what seems impossible. I ask under earners, when's the last time you did something you thought you couldn't do or you were scared to do? And they scratch their head, and they think, and I ask high earners, and they say all the time, it's a way of life. And they have what I call the high earners slogan. If it's not illegal or immoral, I just say yes.
I love it. Love it. Oh my goodness, this is so fascinating. And I can talk to you all day. So I love that you have 3 girls, and especially you're definitely teaching women how to be wealthy. So what is the one, of course, you've given us so much and so many advice, but what is the other key element to learning about money and being financially independent what is the one practice that they can ultimately take on if they know nothing about mindset? Let's say if they have access to, what is the one simple step they can take in educating themselves?
I think I just gave it, you know, every day, read something, every week, talk, every month, save. I think one of the things that's really helpful is if you run up in barriers, that you can't seem to get something, you can't seem to do something, it seems out of just, you can't, is to always ask yourself, why don't I want this? What am I afraid of? And what will happen if I have it?
Yeah.
That's the inner work. That's the self-exploration. I don't know that there's only one thing to do.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. If I had to get one thing, I'm going to tell you now, if I had to get one thing, and we've touched on it. If I had to do one thing, it is get support from people on the same path. I think because we women are so relationship oriented, it is so important to have support. And under earners or people who have trouble with money tend to surround themselves with like-minded people, with pessimists, with worrywarts, you know, with naysayers. And they're not bad people, they're just scared. So when you go to change, they're going to want to pull you back. So it's really important to find support from people who will cheer you on, to find role models, people, even if you don't know them, to find people who are doing what you want to do and look at how they did it. I think that is the one thing I would say is a good place to start, because for me, it was interviewing those women for my first book, interviewing smart women that, God, that was just, oh, that's how you do it.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I love that. I love that.
Amazing.
And it's true.
Yes. Fascinating. So last but not least, of course, this show is dedicated to all the moms, and you are an amazing mom yourself. What is your piece of advice for parents, especially with girls?
To talk about money, to share your experience. When I right after my divorce, and I was a mess and I didn't understand money, and I was trying to learn about it. My kids were young, so I shared as much as I could, but I shared that I was learning about money, that it was important. And I would talk to them about what I was doing. And I remember even taking, they were 9 and 12, one was a baby, but I remember taking my 10-year-old and 13-year-old with me to a financial planner. And my 10-year-old had her head down on the table the whole time, totally bored. But I swear, it's something sunk in. It's sunk in. And you know, it's not the words we use, it's the actions. And to really show them that you're getting smart about money. And share your process.
I love that.
I love that. I say that because, you know, I have a toddler and I have also a 10-month-old, and, you know, I knew nothing about money, especially with my early experience of money being withheld from me, and, you know, and all of that. So that is fascinating, because honestly, that's what I want to really start teaching my kids as early as possible of you know, of money and the concept of that. And yes.
And you know, my parents did something really smart. When my kids were young, they gave each one, when I say young, when they became around 12 or 13, they gave each one $1,000 and said, you have to give it away by the next year. You can split it up, but they wanted to teach them not only how to be responsible, but how to be philanthropic. And this was such an important lesson to them. And I remember what I did is, when my youngest daughter, the others were out of the house when I finally started getting my act together, I had 3 jars, and I would give her an allowance. And one jar said spending, one jar said spending, and one jar said giving. And we would divide up their allowance into that. And I remember we would wait a year for the giving. And I remember how excited she was. She wanted to give to the Humane Society, Slow Animals. To see her walk in with her little jar of coins, give it to the Humane Society. It's like you dropping your coin into the thing. It's like, that's an important aspect, being responsible and being generous.
Yes.
Yes.
You know, there's 4 rules of wealth. And if you could model these 4 rules in this order, would you like to hear them?
Please.
I got my pen.
Yes, please.
4 rules of wealth. This is how you create wealth. And it's really simple. You spend less, you save more, you invest wisely, and you give generously, in that order. Most of us have the giving generously part down pat, but giving generously without spending less, saving more, and investing wisely is always an act of self-sabotage. Because not only are you jeopardizing your own financial security, but you're diminishing the impact you can make with your money. So you want to model spending less, saving more, and at some point talk about investing wisely. I mean, we talked about investing in Disney when the kids were young. We would go places. I wonder if this would make a good investment. Just introduce the conversation in a very child-friendly, understandable way.
Mm-hmm.
Which I think is amazing. I wish that those conversations had been had when I was growing up. My parents we didn't have those conversations. And it's funny, I remember, I don't know if I was finishing college or finishing graduate school, but right around my early 20s. And I remember having a conversation with a girlfriend of mine, and I felt very comfortable having this conversation with her. But I said, at what point did I miss a class on how to manage my money? And like, how do people learn about stocks and bonds and investments and saving and percentages? And are these things that are like a deep, dark secret and no one wants to share them? And who's telling? I mean, really, my mind was just blown. My eyes were wide open. And I just thought, how does everyone know all of this? And why wasn't it talked about? Or, why are some people talked to about, why do some people get this information at certain ages and others don't? And so, it is. It's very interesting.
It's true, but it can all change right now in your family.
Right.
And you don't have to know everything. I certainly didn't know everything, but I shared my process.
Right. And I love that. I wish that had happened, but I can change that now.
Oh, yeah.
Sure.
Moving forward, for sure. Thank you so much, Barbara, for everything, all of the knowledge, all of the share. So what's next for you and how can we find you?
So I think the best way is my website, Barbara-Huson, Barbara-Huson.com. And there's just all kinds of information on there. And
yes,
I'm very accessible. So I'd love to hear from anybody.
Awesome.
Noah said, Barbara's my hero.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. You just made my day. Thank you.
Oh, it's a whole, Barbara is my hero. I can personally relate to her issue and financial depending on husband, and Q&A comes up. I just want to ask 2 questions. Okay. She has 2 questions for you, Barbara. Right.
What are they? I didn't know.
So she says,
Can I have Zanoa ask me? Can she ask me the questions?
Yes, Zanoa, go ahead.
Oh my God, I can't believe I'm talking to you. I'm sorry. I'm just, I'm like starstruck right now.
Okay, you're not driving. You're not driving.
No, I pulled over to the side of the road for this. I made sure I pulled over. But I guess I did the same. After reading your book, I know I did the similar things that you had done as far as I grew up very traditionally. My husband was like kind of the head of the household. I left all my financial decisions to him, and he made some pretty bad mistakes that left us in a bad position. So I just want to know like 2 things. One, how do you move on from that anger to push through and focus on educating yourself financially? Like, how did you do it?
Honey, that is the best question anyone could ask. That is an important part of the work that we don't talk about. For me, I did a lot of therapy, counseling, and I did a lot of writing in my journals. I would take bags of ice and I would go outside and I would throw them and I would say, I hate you. How could you do this? So I really worked on that. I really worked, because that anger will plug us up like nothing else will. So I really encourage you to do that. And what happens after you get through anger is something interesting. After you get through the anger, there is a line. I don't know if you've ever heard the course of A Course in Miracles, but it's a spiritual text, and I'm very spiritual, and I really use that to guide me. And the Course in Miracles says, you are doing this unto yourself. And when I could get past my anger, and I could see, it was my husband's fault. It was, God damn, it was my husband's fault. But I gave him the keys to the kingdom. I let him make all the decisions.
Yeah.
When I could see I was as much at fault as he was, that I was not a victim. And when I could get out of that, that's when things started changing. But I couldn't have even seen that till I got past my anger. Does that make, how does that resonate with you, Sanoa?
No, that makes sense, because and my mother, shockingly enough, she's a stay-at-home wife and mother, and she told me the same thing. You got to get more involved. And I'm like, nah. Well, what you're saying makes total sense. I allowed him to have this control, and I mean, you're right. That's the best way to put it.
You have to see that from a place of compassion and not self-criticism and self-abuse. I mean, because I got mad. I had to get past my anger at myself. But when I can get in compassion, when I could see what I didn't know any better, I did the best I could. And that was wrong. And so now I'm going to change it and be compassionate and be patient. But Zanoa, you did the best you could. And now you're going to do even better to model that for your children.
Oh, thank you. Well, I'm sorry. Just thank you. I mean, that really was the major. Sorry, that's my kids in the background. Yeah, no, that was the major.
He's agreeing with me.
He's agreeing.
He's saying, Mom, yes, you're fine. You're okay. I love you. You can do this.
I mean,
you can.
Right, I know I can.
Yeah.
Just thank you, really. I mean, like I needed that kind of like, not a slap in the face, but I needed that like, wake up, kind of, so.
And Zanoa, this is not pushing on anything, but I have a group called the Wealth Connection that is filled with women just like you. And you'll see so much progress in that group of women who are really wanting to take the financial reins. And we support each other like you wouldn't believe. And we have financial experts come in. We have coaching, group coaching. We have courses. We have book clubs. I really would like to encourage you to check that out.
Barbara, will you repeat that one more time?
It's called Wealth.
It's called Connection.
It's called the Wealth Connection, and just check it out on my. It's a very inexpensive program, very inexpensive.
Yeah, no, I will. Wealth Connection.
I'll put it into the group chat for everyone who's.
Yep, and then all of Barbara's social media, the links are also in the chat as well. Her website, Facebook, and YouTube, and every piece of information as well as there. Yep.
I'd really love to support you, Zanoa. I really would.
Thank you so much. You have no idea. Like, I was looking for something when all this happened, and a friend recommended the book, the Prince Charming book and the Secrets of Six-Figure Women. Those books, because I don't have a lot of time to read, but I listen to it while I drive. And those books I listen to as if I'm listening to like the Bible. I mean, I'm super religious, so I listen to it like that. Like, those books honestly kept me from just, I mean, nothing drastic, but it kept me sane.
Listen, I swear to God, I would not be able to write those books. I would have given up if it wasn't for my children. I don't even think I'd be on this planet if it wasn't for my children.
Yes.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
100%. Well, thank you so much, Noah, for joining us. And Barbara, from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for being here. I am just so honored to have you and to have learned from you. And definitely, this is not the end. We will definitely stay in touch. And to all the women out there, thank you for all you do and educating us on how to be financially independent and building wealth. So thank you, Barbara, for being here with us.
Barbara, thank you so much. It was such a pleasure.
Thank you. And again, Stephanie, thanks for being so courageous. That was great.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Bye.
Bye.